Hi, today we will see how we can download and install MySQL on a Windows machine. Let's first go to mysql.com and download the community edition of MySQL installer for Windows. Then we select version 8 and the offline installer. Let's download this file. We actually don't need to log in or create account for Oracle Web. After downloading, we'll follow the process to install it. We are going to install MySQL shell, MySQL server, and MySQL workbench. That is why we select custom setup type, click next. And from these menus, we select MySQL server, then MySQL workbench, and MySQL shell. Next. And as I have already installed it, there are path conflict, but if you install for the first time, you will not see these conflicts. And we are ready to install. It will take a couple of minutes. So we have installed these products, then click next. And we are going to configure MySQL server. We'll keep as it is, the TCP IP port and X protocol port. We need to set up a password for our MySQL root user. So click next. And as I already installed it, it is asking for my current root password. But if you install it for the first time, you need to put the password and confirm the password. So there will be two text boxes, and please store the password for later use, because when we want to use MySQL root user, we need that password. So I am putting my already set up password here. Click next. And then execute. You may see different number of options here. Finish, click next. And it will start MySQL workbench and shell to the setup. So it started MySQL shell and MySQL workbench. So we are closing these two windows for now. And we are going to add the path of the MySQL shell and MySQL server to our environment variables. So we go to C, then program files, then MySQL shell, bean, and copy this path. And then to add them to the environment variable, we are going to set them in the environment variable screen. Environment variable, go to path, click edit, add a new path, paste the path, then again copy the path of MySQL server, the bin folder basically, and go to the environment variable, click new, paste the path, and then set the path. Okay, and okay. So if we open command prompt now, we should be able to access MySQL and see MySQL version. So it is showing MySQL version. Let's go to MySQL shell or MySQL command prompt. MySQL user root for password, FNP, and it is asking the password that we have set during the installation. And now we are on the MySQL command prompt. Let's see if there are databases already. Sorry for the typo. So there are several databases, and let's create a new database. So create database my CSDB. So if we run the show database again, it will show the CSDB. So let's use this CSDB database and then maybe create a table named student and student ID worker 15, student email 100, and maybe student name worker. Very okay. And if we check the tables, we can check the tables. Let's insert a row. Maybe ID 1234, email demo@uic, and name demo user. So if we tables, so we don't get any auto completion in command prompt. So we need to type everything here. Select all from student, and we can see the inserted student information. So let's try MySQL shell and see what is the difference between MySQL shell and this command prompt. So let's open MySQL shell, and by default it's going to use JavaScript. So we are going to use SQL, and it's switch to SQL mode. So first we need to connect uh, to our database. So /connect, and our username is root, and localhost. The port is 5006. So it didn't ask for the password because previously when I inserted the password here and set it to auto remember it, but for the first time it will ask the root password, and after inserting the password, it will ask if you want to store it or not. So we are connected to the database. Let's see what are the databases here. We can see there are several databases. Let's use the CSDB, and let's see tables. So here we can get auto completion feature when we press tab. For example, if I write select and then I can press tab, and it will autocomplete the text, and select all from student. I'm pressing tab, and it is autocompleting the query. It is showing the student information. So the difference between the MySQL shell and the command prompt is that command prompt doesn't provide any auto-completion feature, but the MySQL shell provides it. So it's easy to use. And now let's see how we can also use MySQL Workbench. MySQL Workbench is a GUI application of provides graphical user interface for MySQL queries. So I'm going to connect to the database, and here we can see the newly created database tables. it shows the uh, table, student table. So let's create a new table here in MySQL Workbench. So in table, we can create table, and let's name it teacher. And it's asking what type of columns we want. So teacher ID, and maybe it's Burger again of length 15. And we set it as primary key and not null. Then teacher name again Burger 45 is maybe increase it to 100. And teacher email. Here we are using graphical user interface, so we are not typing any create table command. We are just setting the attribute characters and then click apply. And it's showing exactly the SQL command it is going to use to create that table. So create table CSDB teacher ID worker not null, teacher name worker, it can be null, teacher email can be null, and it's setting teacher ID as primary key. So click apply, execute SQL statement, finish. So we see the teacher table here. Then we click on this icon and there are no data here. So let's put some data. Teacher name, maybe John Paul, John, demo, at UIC. Let's add another ID, Paul, to at UIC. Click apply. It is going to show us the exact command it is using to insert these tuples into the teacher table. Click apply, execute. So let's go back to the maybe MySQL shell. And now show tables. It is going to show two tables, teacher table, and then we can select all from teacher. And it's showing the two rows. So that is the way to use MySQL from MySQL shell, Windows command prompt, and MySQL Workbench. The Workbench is a GUI application and it provides the graphical user interface to create and update the tables, and running the SQL queries is also possible here. Let's see how we can use VS Code to access SQL database. For that, we need to install some extensions. Let's install an extension called MySQL. I am going to use this one, MySQL Database Manager for MySQL. From Gen, click install, and it's already installed. So we can see two separate icons here, MySQL and database. If we click database, it already got my database because I already installed it and configured it. For the first time, it may ask to give the database connection information, root, localhost, and the password. And let's delete this, remove connection, and then create again. Create connection. So yes, more connection. And we're going to use the root password. Connect, successful, save the connection. And now we can see the tables, teacher, and Student, we can also run the query here. Suppose we want to insert a new teacher, and it also provides auto completion. Insert into teacher values put 111.222 prof and maybe demo prof 3. And just using random values. And after writing the queries, we can click on this execute button, and it shows insert into teacher values. And then if we click it again, and we see our latest user appears here. So these extensions also provide the auto completion feature, and it's a bit cleaner than the MySQL shell because it we can also see different options to execute and the tables itself. So we have seen so far MySQL shell, MySQL workbench, and VS Code plugins, and also we have seen how to use MySQL from command prompt. Whatever works for you, you can use any of them, and that's it for now. Thank you. Thanks a lot.